Gogol's unfinished masterpiece is one of those instances when you should not judge a book by its cover, because despite its funereal title of Pandemic Overtones, Dead Soul is actually very, very, very funny. Gogol's wordplay, 1 million times funnier in the original, I imagine, is perhaps a little bit lost in translation here, but his clever satire is enjoyed the world over, regardless of language or cultural background. God damn. Of Ukrainian Cossack ancestry himself, in his youth Gogol worked as a copying clerk in St. Petersburg, where he no doubt met many of the bureaucratic, officious types that he makes fun of in his writings. Later on, he travelled around, never settling down for very long in a kind of wanderlust. And I think he was in Rome when he wrote Dead Souls. In his later troubled years, he fell prey to some kind of religious mania, and during a crazy night, he burnt the second part of Dead Souls, of which only fragments remain. And it is thus that most people only read or focus on the first part. It is set in early 19th century Tsarist Russia, where a man's standing is judged by the number of serfs, or slaves practically, souls here, that he possesses. And landowners had to pay a poll tax on each of these slaves, serfs, souls, even though some of them might have died since the previous census. So our hero, Pavel Ivanovich Chichikov, decides to travel around Russia. He has worked in public service himself and knows the Byzantine bureaucracy of the times. So as he travels around and visits landowners, he decides to actually purchase these dead serfs, dead souls, as cheaply as he can, and later mortgage them to a bank for a large sum with which to buy himself a country estate where he can comfortably retire. These landowners had to pay this tax on each of their serfs, each poor coachman, farmer, carpenter, bricklayer, you name it, even though some of them had died since the previous census, so the dead ones were of no use to them whatsoever, so why not sell them off? Genius idea. And so, as Chichikov travels around Russia in a britchka, a kind of troika, with his coachman Selifan, Gogol paints a fabulous panorama of the Russia of the times, people with comic situations and characters. Except, as Gogol says, this man, says Gogol, travels about the Russian land and meets with folk of every condition, from the nobly born to the humble toiler. Him I have taken as a type to show forth the vices and failings of the Russian individual. And the characters which revolve around him have also been selected for the purpose of demonstrating our national weaknesses and shortcomings. Pushkin, who was a friend and an admirer of Gogol, upon reading Dead Souls, exclaimed, "God, what a sad country Russia is." In the second part of the novel, Gogol was possibly going to bring about the redemption of Russia through Chichikov, but as he burnt the manuscript, we shall never know how convincing this redemption would have been. Chichikov is neither clever nor witty, but he possesses a certain wisdom and is practical and business-minded. It's actually quite hard not to like him. He's pleasant, good-natured, he has impeccable manners, he's very polite, and he's comically vain and pays much attention to his toilette. Unlike his manservant Petrushka, Chichikov washes himself often, he sprinkles himself with eau de cologne, and he wears well-starched shirts. And he's Cheeks and chin are so beautifully shaved that even a blind man might have admired their agreeably rounded contours. But he does try to abuse public service, Chichikov. But he doesn't recognise this as having done wrong. The entire system is corrupt. It's run by knaves and blockheads. You have to bribe officials and pull strings to get anything at all done. All of us have taken advantage at times, in one manner or another, says Gogol. Surely one cannot always restrain oneself. Man is not God. No, but man is inevitably found out, or as Chichikov sees it, misfortune overwhelms him. So, far from blaming his dishonest schemes, Chichikov justifies himself by saying, if I had not taken advantage of the chance, other people would have done so. So Gogol holds up a mirror to Russian officials and the effect that Russian corrupt public life produced on the national character. Chichikov is a con man. He's learned to get by relying on his people skills, like a very persuasive salesman. But in the course of the narrative, we learn that he's not scared of hard work. He respects moral principles. Ultimately, all he wants really is to retire pleasantly. Imagine being poor in early 19th century Russia without any pension, without the NHS. Wouldn't you be prepared to do just about anything in order to acquire some wealth that which would enable you to retire comfortably? So Chichikov is certainly not an epic hero. He's not a knight-errant either. Gogol is not the kind of writer who celebrates lofty and dignified characters. He writes about Little Russia, about commonplace characters, as he says, and that terrible mire of petty details which enmesh our lives. Of himself, he says that he has long been condemned by some wonderful power to go hand in hand with my strange heroes and view life as it passes by, through laughter and tears. So Gogol's satire is definitely very enjoyable. I laugh out loud at Dead Souls and all of his other wonderful writings. But I wonder if there's something I cannot quite put my finger on, a kind of elusive bond that escapes me, and I wonder whether I should be Russian or of Slavic nature to really understand Gogol. So what can I do? As I read under his wonderful power, I do just as he does and go hand in hand with his strange heroes and jump into the britchka with Chichikov and Selifan and Petrushka. I put the cap over my ears as he's freezing cold. And look out, as the steppe landscape rolls by, I see picturesque villages and ancient wooden churches, and I see the crest of pine trees in the mist, and I hear songs resounding from afar, and the tolling of bells, and I see crows fly over fields stretching as far as the eye can reach, and tiny little windows with snow piled against them, and stockings drying on copper samovars. And I wonder, do I really need to understand this or grasp this elusive bond? Can I just not enjoy the ride? And I think this is what I'm going to do.